I'm doing something a little bit different today. Not about a particular fight, but about Fight Quest, the show I used to do many years ago that still gets brought up constantly. One of the most common statements I hear is, you should do Fight Quest again, or you should bring back Fight Quest. Or the first thing you have to understand is Fight Quest wasn't my idea. I didn't produce it. I didn't come up with the concept. I was not the executive producer of it. None of those things. So it's important for me because it always comes up. And I finished shooting that. I started shooting it almost 13 years ago. It finished up in 2008. We started late 2006. But it gets brought up all the time. I went and joined a new jiu-jitsu gym here in South Florida. And, have a great time, great team, and like 4 or 5 people have asked me about Fight Quest since I started rolling there. It just comes up all the time. I always got recognized for it. Less frequently now because it's been a long time, but the longevity of that show has really been stunning. And I get asked a lot of questions about it. So I figured, since I'm not doing anything else at the moment, I'd let you guys in on everything that happened. I'm going to do it in parts. Each part is going to be, starting with the audition, which is now, one YouTube episode for every episode we did, if you want to hear the background of all this stuff. Now, if you don't, or this doesn't get enough views, I just won't do it, because I don't know how many people are still interested in Fight Quest. I have no clue. It gets brought up all the time, but I don't know if you guys want to hear about it. So this is kind of an experiment. If you like it and want to hear more, just view it and leave me a comment and let me know. And then I will do one for every episode we did. And there are 13 of them, and I remember each one very, very well. But I'm starting off with the audition, or how it came to be. And the story of Fight Quest starts with my final professional mixed martial arts fight. What had happened was, it was a local fight in California, in Hollywood, called Pangea. And the promoter was a guy named Jamie Walsh. And we had grappled against one another a couple times. The Gracie Open and a thing called Never Tap, which was like a submission only type thing before those things were really big. So anyway, Jamie and I grappled against each other a few times. Really nice guy, liked him a lot. We had spoken a few times, and he calls me and he says, "Hey, I'm doing a fight here at the Palladium, big club in Hollywood, and I want you to be the co-main event, and you're going to fight a guy named Jason Chambers." And at the time, Jason was like 16-4, 16-2, something like that. Great record. And he said, "I want you to fight Jason Chambers. And if you beat him, it's going to be great for you, because he is doing this show for the History Channel where he's going around doing different martial arts. And after like a week of training, he fights an expert in the style. And he goes all around the world doing this stuff. And once the show comes out, his name is going to be really big. And you having a win over him will be great, man. Great opportunity for you." A lot of fights, by the way, are sold as great opportunities. Whenever the guy is 16-2 and you're 5-1, which is what I was at the time, it's a great opportunity. If you win, great things are going to happen. And a lot of his pitch was this show he was doing. He didn't give me the title. He didn't give me the name. He just said he's doing a show for History Channel where he does all these different martial arts styles around the world. And I thought, man, that'd be great to do. I was so jealous. Man, that's awesome, man. What an amazing gig. Good for him, man. Great. Sure, I'll take the fight. Love to. No problem at all. Trained hard, had the fight, and I won with an inverted heel hook in like 2.5 minutes or something. He held out a wee bit too long on the heel hook, and his knee popped pretty good. And I remember at the after party for the fight, which was in Hollywood, I ran into him. He was really gracious about the fight. He congratulated me and everything. He was like on one leg with like 2 chicks. And it was kind of funny. He was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm fine." I was like, "Yeah, you should probably get that checked out." He's like, "No, man, I'll be great, man. Don't worry about it, man. Good stuff, man. Good heel hook, man. I'll see you again soon." I said, "Yeah, cool, great, man." So I was teaching at the time at Tincture Prep, which is a school in Long Beach, California. I was teaching 7th grade math. And that week, I get a phone call from one of my teammates. I think it was Joe Camacho, who was an MMA fighter that I used to train with. He has since, unfortunately, passed away from a heart attack. And he calls me, and he says, "There's this show about martial arts that's filming out of New York. The producer's out of New York. I have her number. They're doing this like these phone auditions, and then you're going to do a physical audition if they like you. But first, it's a phone interview. Here's their phone number. Give her a call." And I said, "Okay, no problem." So I called the phone number. This producer, her name's Elizabeth Lewin, picked up the phone, And I told her who I was and what was going on. She goes, yeah, we're casting for a show. We want 2 people to go around the world and do different martial arts. And at the end, they fight an expert in that martial art after like 4 or 5 days of training. She starts going on and she's describing Jason's show. And my first thought was, I injured him and they need a replacement for him. And I felt terrible. I was like, oh, like I'm on the phone with her and I was like, oh man, I popped his knee. They had an MRI. It's not good. And they said, we need somebody else. And they're looking for a replacement for him. And I felt awful. There's this unwritten code in MMA at the time. Remember, this is, 12 years ago now. You don't want to hurt someone's ability to make money. You don't want to hurt someone's earning potential, putting food on the table. You don't want to do that. If I have to injure you, if I have to hurt you, fine, that's the way it goes, okay? But you don't want them to not be able to have their next fight or their next opportunity or whatever it is. We didn't make any money back then. I think I made $1,200 to beat Jason in the co-main event of a fight. And that was the last fight I had. And so nobody made that much money. So getting a TV show was a huge deal. And the fact that I injured him and he couldn't continue, I was bummed out. I was like, that sucks. That sucks. So anyway, she's describing the show to me. She goes, oh, you sound great. I think you'd be a great fit. You're going to go to this audition. They set up an audition at my old gym I was training at. And a bunch of other fighters showed up, all local Southern California guys. So it was a bunch of guys I knew. The scene back then was pretty small. And if you fought locally in Southern California, you knew each other. It's a small world back then. So anyway, my degree is in history. That's what I studied. I went to UCLA and got a degree in it. It's what I'm always reading about all the time. I'm a dork. I'm constantly reading books. So what I had done the night before is I had taken Southeast Asian history, and I had taken Russian history, I had taken Japanese history. So what I had done is I had researched the history of a bunch of styles and then kind of brushed up on the history I had studied of that culture and of the places those styles came from. So what happened was, they kind of paired us off and they started doing this audition. And a lot of the times what they do is they just point a camera at you and go, okay, we're in, or they didn't even know the styles actually, now that I think about it. They said, okay, pretend you're talking about a style somewhere doing something, go. And they kind of let you improv it. Well, what I did is that I threw in all my history stuff. So I would throw in a temple I had studied when I had taken Southeast Asian history and say, hey, we're doing Muay Thai. We're in front of this temple. It's X number of years old. They used to do demonstrations like this. So I would go into the history of the martial art tied in with the history of the place, wherever I happened to be, because I had studied all that history. And so I'd kind of go on these monologues about where I was, and here's what I'm doing, and here's the history of it, and they love that. they absolutely loved it. And so rather than just talking about the style, which, I knew enough about it. I had trained in Muay Thai, I trained in Jiu-Jitsu and Sambo and all that stuff. But having the history of where I was, because I had a degree in this stuff, helped kind of flush out the story and give me details to talk about that the other fighters didn't have. And also, as I've learned, I was teaching at the time, middle school, 12 years old. And you hear all the time in TV that you're supposed to speak as though you're speaking to a 12-year-old. That's about where you want to hit, is middle school. So I was used to explaining stuff to kids all the time. I was teaching algebra to kids who didn't want to learn algebra. But you got to explain everything in detail because they don't just automatically pick it up. You got to explain it forever. So that was the mindset I was in at the time. So I kind of talked to the camera like I was explaining it to one of my kids in class who had never done Muay Thai before. And it worked out really well. And in a couple minutes, they kind of started shoving everybody else aside, and they just started talking. They just kept talking to me over and over. And the next phase was they wanted me to interview somebody, to do like an interview style thing. So what we did is my striking coach at the time was a guy named Sonny Michaels. And he was really good with sticks. He was really good at Eskrima. And he happened to have his sticks with him. So it's a style I'm not familiar with. So there were a lot of honest questions I could ask because I'm not an expert in Eskrima. I didn't really know much about it. So I did this interview with him where he was showing me all these forms and stuff with these Eskrima sticks, and I was asking questions about the history of it. And I was like, do people actually fight on the street in the Philippines with sticks? Is it like, do you challenge people? Is it a real thing? Is it just an art now? Is there real combat? Is it legal to carry sticks? And anyway, so I went through this whole interview, and he would do these forms in katas and stop with the stick like an inch from my face. And if you've ever done any stick work, Eskrima and Kali and stuff, the speed is phenomenal. Just the physics. It's the end of a whip is going unbelievably fast. So he would do these forms and stuff and stop right in front of my eyes. And I kept going, dude, don't kill me with that thing. Dude, watch it. You know, and so it was this funny back and forth with my coach about him not wanting to rip my face off with a stick. And what I learned later that I didn't know is they chose Eskrima in the Philippines as a style and a place to go because of my reaction to the sticks. I was so terrified of the sticks because he kept going around right near my head that they were like, oh, this would be a great style to do. I didn't know that at the time, but they were writing it down. So I did this whole thing with Sonny. I did the history of all these styles. I pretended to be in front of all of these monuments and historical places in the places I was talking about, you know. So that kind of got me the gig. And I had to show him I could fight. I think we maybe did some pad drills or something to show that I could fight, you know. And I was leaving the audition, and the executive producer comes up to me, who's the guy who's actually shooting the thing, comes up to me, and he says, as much as I can tell you, you got it, you got it. He goes, I have to go back to New York. I have to talk to some people. You have to do a background check, that all this stuff, but you're our guy, basically. He goes, you know, you're what we're looking for. You're able to tell a story. You can fight. You know the background of this kind of stuff. Man, it'd be really great to have you if you can do it. And so basically, I left the audition knowing I pretty much had it, which is crazy because you almost never get that. And so anyway, so they wanted to be a partner thing. And so they were looking for a partner. I did my audition first. They were looking for a partner. They had some people in mind, blah, 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 blah. And so it was before I left, because I was going to Greece that summer. My family's Greek, and I went with my mom to Greece for 3 weeks or something. So before we left, I believe it was before we left, they said, we have this guy we think will work. He's very different from you, which we think is good. He's not a pro fighter or anything. He's just getting started. He's a military guy. His name's Doug. And we want to fly him out and see if you guys click and get along and what the deal is. And I said, sure, great, love to meet him. And so a few days later, we met up in Venice, California. I was living in like West LA at the time. And me and the executive producer and Doug all met in Venice. And we did basically a walking tour up, Venice Beach, just the boardwalk there. And Doug is the exact same guy you saw on television on Fight Quest. Just a likable, fun, a little bit crazy guy, full of energy, really wears his heart on his sleeve. I liked him right away, and he liked me right away. And so we did a thing in Venice to see if we got along, and we would have chemistry together on the show. And Charlie had a camera the whole time. So how do we look visually? And Doug is just like, Doug has almost no filter, and Doug will just leap right into anything. I do too, but I think a little bit more first beforehand. So that contrast of me kind of being the older guy who's a little more mature and Doug being kind of the younger wild man who's less experienced, worked out great. And that really came across when we were in Venice, and apparently it really came across on camera. People really liked watching us interact, and we became really good friends really quickly. It wasn't hard at all. So I met him, and then we went to a gym I was teaching at. I was kind of teaching part-time at this gym, teaching jiu-jitsu, and I called the owner and said, hey, we need the gym, because they wanted me to evaluate Doug and see if he could fight or if he was just going to get murdered or what the deal was. And so at the time, Doug was like maybe blue belt level in jiu-jitsu, basic striking, but I put him through a workout, and then we sparred a little bit, and then we rolled a little bit, and the executive producer asked me, so, how is he? What's his deal? And I said, he listens. He listens. He really wants to learn. Like when he got smoked, in any position we were in, he wanted to know what he did wrong. He was very like, oh man, and he didn't start making excuses. He didn't storm off the mat all pissed off. He had the right attitude to do a show where we were going to get beat up a lot or learn a lot or whatever euphemism or metaphor you want to learn, you want for learning. You can't have that. F this, I'm out of here. You can't blow up and freak out all the time. And Doug didn't do that no matter what happened. When we were sparring and when we were rolling and when we were training, he never went, F this, I'm gone, I don't need this. I didn't beat him up or anything, but a lot of guys just get frustrated when things don't go their way, and Doug wasn't that guy. And so that's what I told the executive producer. I said, dude, he learns. He really cares. His skills are basic, really basic, but he's got the right attitude, and he's fun, and I think he will adapt to styles well, in that he'll want to learn. So he said, okay, I think this is the team. I think this works. So I went to Greece for a family trip, and I remember this is back before the internet was, the internet existed, obviously, but it wasn't easy. You couldn't, Wi-Fi wasn't a big deal. So I had to go to these internet cafes at like 1 a.m. all the time to check my email because they needed background information. They needed bio stuff. And there's a huge time difference, obviously. I'm in Greece. I'm in Athens. And they're in New York, wherever they are. And so every night I would have to go to the internet cafe and give them whatever they need. Do you have a passport? Yeah, here's a scan of it, all this kind of stuff. So I came back, I believe, and we ended up flying to New Jersey, where the executive producer lived, Doug and I met all the producers and shooters who would be working on it, or most of them. And they had brought all these cameras and lenses and lights and all this stuff because they didn't know really how to shoot live action, real fighting. Because if you know anything about film, generally speaking, real action is jerky. It's if you're not using the right shutter speed, if you're not doing everything in the right time, if you're not doing everything the right way, it looks goofy. You have to know how to shoot it in order for it to look fluid and real, and what angles to have, because it's real. We can only do this so many times. We can't, all right, stop, we're gonna do another take. It wasn't gonna work that way. So they brought all these lenses, and they had Doug and I kind of fake spar a little bit just to get the speed of what was going on, how you move. They had us do some shadow boxing stuff, in close, from a distance, blah, 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 all this stuff, so that we could give them an idea of how to shoot everything. Because not everybody who, in fact, I don't think anyone of the shooters had ever shot real combat or boxing. This, live TV, meaning combat sports and Bellator, UFC, and boxing, and kind of reality TV or docuseries are usually different worlds. You're either in live sports or you're in the television world, or you're in narrative film, so it's very separated in that sense. So none of them had ever shot boxing. They didn't work for HBO or Showtime. They did stuff like, real, like docuseries type stuff. So Dog the Bounty Hunter was one of them that a bunch of them had worked on. Stuff like that, but they hadn't actually filmed a real fight. So we ended up doing that, and then I remember we sat down and watched, someone had put together clips from like Cinderella Man and stuff. Cinderella Man and Rocky and these fight movies, that's the element we want to capture. So we sat there at this guy's house, the executive producer, and he went over these clips and went, this is the kind of stuff we want. This is the kind of emotion we want to capture. This is the kind of thing that you shooters and us as the talent need to get. This is what we're trying to capture, the authenticity of it. And so that was how it all started. Got the audition, met Doug, went to New Jersey to test out, here's what we're going to take with us because we weren't sure. Everything went well there, and then they said, your first one's going to be Manila. You're going to Manila, you're going to the Philippines, you're going to do stick fighting. And like I said, as I found out later, it was because the sticks freaked me out so much that they went, that's good. We want that reaction. Jimmy's eyes wide as sticks go at him. We want that in real life. So we found out it was going to be in Manila. It was going to be in the Philippines. And the way it worked was 13 days in country. 13 days in the country itself. Now, the 5 days of training, that was real. That wasn't fake. We didn't do more than that, and they condensed it. It really was 5 days. But there was, right when we landed, the day you land, you don't do anything because you're jet lagged and everything. Who knows what time you land. So you're trying to stay awake and kind of adjust a little bit. Then there was a B-roll day, meaning they would go around and get footage of the city, scenics of wherever we happen to be. Then we met the masters, the instructors themselves. And we got introduced to them. Doug met his guy. I met my guy. We separated. We didn't see each other 5 days. That was true. And then we came back. We did the final fight. There might be a setup day somewhere in there. And then they had 2 days, what they call rain days. So they always pad it with like 2 or 3 days in case there's rain or there's a problem and they need to reshoot something. If you can't get B-roll on a day because there's a storm all day, which is not weird in Thailand or Manila or anywhere we were, they have an extra day there to get stuff they need. So 13 days total from the time we landed to the time we took off. So we figured that out, and they said, you're going to be in Manila for the first one. So if you guys want to hear the rest of this, if you guys want to hear about what happened in Manila, all of us behind the scenes, all the craziness, and there's a lot of it. What I will do is I will do them in order that they were shot. I don't remember what, some of them aren't in the same order as that they were shot in, was the order you saw them in. But I will do basically behind the scenes stories for every Fight Quest if you want them. If you don't know what I'm talking about and it's not of any interest to you, it's on YouTube. You can check it out and see for yourself. But if you want it, go ahead and leave the comments, and I will start with part 2, which is Manila. Enjoy.